Okay, great. Thank you both for your time. I'll go start looking for my summer holiday now.
Well, can we help you, John? Where do you want to go?
You can follow me on Twitter @holiday_hut. Missouri are keen to have more people from the UK visit the state, and last week they came over to the UK to meet with travel people, agents, tour operators, bloggers to discuss what the state can offer. Unfortunately, I couldn't make that because, I was all right. I was in Antigua. So I had a conversation with Dan Lennon over the phone today, actually, and the sound does get a little bit ropey every now and again, but do bear with it because there is some really interesting information. And it does sound, it's not a state I've thought about visiting before, but now I've spoken to Dan, it's definitely up there because it does sound a lot of fun, especially when it comes to music, which I love, and drinking, which I also love. But anyway, more about the drinking and the music later. But first of all, for all of you who's not sure where Missouri is, the first thing Dan told us was how we could find it on the map.
Missouri is located pretty much in the center of America. In fact, I think the geographical center is in Independence, Missouri, and which means it's about 5 hours southwest of Chicago, and pretty much equidistant from the coast areas.
So, how did Missouri get its name?
Missouri was, of course, like most of the U.S., was Native American land, and it comes from Indian words meaning wooden canoe people or those of the big canoe, because there's the Missouri River and also the Mississippi River that are a big part of our state. So it came from the Sioux Indians that lived here.
Okay, so why is it known as the Show Me State?
Well, it has been known as the Show Me State, and this kind of goes back to maybe a characteristic of our people. I think it actually came from the late 1800s, that people in the state were people that you need to show stuff to. They weren't easily gullible. They had a real sense of sort of skepticism and doubt, and and common sense. And so it kind of speaks to the level-headedness and maybe the hard-headedness of the people that originally populated Missouri. We laugh about the fact that the Show Me State maybe doesn't sometimes sound so hospitable, and maybe it does reflect something a little bit about our folks. But it is quite hospitable, and we'd love to have people come and visit. One thing that's quite noted about people in the Midwest, and particularly in Missouri, is how gracious and welcoming and friendly they are, and particularly interested in international visitors.
Okay, so how do we get there from the UK?
Okay, there's good connecting service to St. Louis and Kansas City. Most people fly into Chicago from UK and then go to St. Louis or Kansas City. And then on American United, there's also service into Springfield, Missouri, which is down in the southern part of the state as well. So one way to, however, at the present time, we don't have direct service, but a lot of folks, because of Route 66, which I know your listeners are familiar with, which goes from Chicago all the way across the country out to California, it comes through our state at St. Louis. So a lot of folks will fly into Chicago, and then they'll drive along Route 66 down into Missouri.
Before we get on to Route 66, I understand there's going to be a solar eclipse next year. When in the year is it, and where would be the best place to visit see it from your state?
Well, there's a lot of good places to visit it. It's going to move kind of in the southeasterly direction from the top of the state out in Kansas City area, in particular St. Joseph, which is north of Kansas City, will be for 2 minutes and 38 seconds a complete total eclipse there. It'll move across the state. A good place would be Columbia, which is in the center of the state. That's where I live. 2 minutes and 36 seconds there, and then come out kind of in the the St. Louis area on the east of the state, and most directly over Hillsborough and DeSoto, where it'll also be about 2 minutes and 39 seconds of total eclipse. All those, particularly Kansas City, St. Louis, and St. Joe, there's lots and lots of things here that you could do. St. Joe is putting on some events associated with the total solar eclipse. And St. Joe is where Jesse James was killed, and so there's sort of a Wild West feel to, and the museum there. And in fact, they can even show you the hole in the wall from the bullet. And also the Pony Express was the eastern terminus, and then from there is when they would ride their horses across the continent to California with the mail. So a lot of feeling of the Wild West and the Western history comes in on that part of the state, particularly in St. Joseph. And it's a very, very rare thing for us. The last time there was a total solar eclipse in Missouri was in 1452, which is prior to Columbus. So this is a very rare event for our state, and both on the western and central and eastern, there'll be special astronomers. They'll be giving seminars and so forth, and it's really be a lot of fun. But if people are going to do that, they probably need to do it rather quickly because the hotels are filling up for that specific date, which is August 21st, 2017.
Hey, Dave, it's your round, mate.
Yeah, my throat's drier than the Gobi Desert.
All right. Beers all round, yeah? OK, which one of you jokers has got my wallet?
Well, I haven't got it. God, he'll do anything to save a few quid.
Yeah, that's right. He's always had short arms and long pockets.
Seriously, guys, someone's nicked it from my bag.
If you lose your wallet, passport or tickets while you're on holiday, your mates winding you up will be the least of your worries. Keep your valuable stuff locked up safely when you don't need it. And if you're on the beach or by the pool, only take the cash you need.
For more information, go to gov.uk/knowbeforeyougo or follow us on Facebook or Twitter.
You can keep up to date with travel news and leave me a message at facebook.com/John Guinn Travel Show. So Missouri, it has Route 66 going through it, and the next thing we're going to be finding out from Dan is where the route goes through the state and various stop-off points along the way.
Well, it comes into the state in St. Louis, and of course that's our largest city, and St. Louis just so many things to do there. Mm-hmm. But in particular, with regard to Route 66, as you come in, there's a Route 66 museum in St. Louis, and then there's a iconic place that's been there since the late 20s, which is called Ted Drewes, Drewes, and it's a frozen custard stand. I think you don't have frozen custard, perhaps, in the UK. It's really kind of a thick ice cream. Mm-hmm. It's not really custard. It's ice cream. And it's delicious, and the building looks like it has always looked, that kind of iconic look of the Route 66 American architecture along there. And then as you go to the west, Merrimack Caverns, which is a place where, speaking of Jesse James again, the 1800s outlaw, he hung out in the Merrimack Caverns, and where he hid out from the authorities. One of the largest rocking chairs was in Fanning, Missouri, along Route 66, which is a pretty good and interesting photo op. Mm-hmm. And again, all along Route 66, John, much of it, of course, it's been replaced by Interstate 44 from an effectiveness transportation standpoint, but I-44 has none of the romance of Route 66, which continues to include many of the iconic gas stations, motels, cafes, and kind of wacky sculptures, concrete dinosaurs, and Indian teepees, and the like that you associate with Route 66. It's really a throwback to the 1950s. Very, very interesting. Springfield, Missouri, is about two-thirds of the way through, and that's actually the birthplace of Route 66, where they actually came up with the name and selected Route 66 as the name of that highway, the Mother Road. Brand new car museum there that has classic cars, and the history of Route 66 is in Springfield. And I would say there's a brand new opening coming up next year in Springfield called Wonders of Wildlife. And it's hard to describe the enormity of this project, but it's based on a 1.3 million gallon aquarium. That's one of the largest in the whole world. It's in Springfield, Missouri. It's opening in the spring. It's associated with the Bass Pro Shops, which is the largest sporting goods outfitter in the U.S., and has to do with conservation and hunting and fishing. It's just an absolutely first-rate experience for people to have as they're going along Route 66. But as you continue to go west, people often take a day trip down to Branson, Missouri, which is south of Springfield, about 45 minutes. And they have in Branson, Missouri, in addition to beautiful lakes and other attractions there, it's in the southern Ozark Mountains, which are absolutely beautiful. They have more theater seats than Broadway in Branson, Missouri. About 40-some theaters, about 75 shows of every different kind of music, country music, pop, rock and roll, pop, and all of it is very, very family friendly down there. So you can go down as a couple, or go down on your motorcycle, or go down with your family and have a blast down in Branson, and either as a day trip or a stopover, and then come back up to Springfield and turn west and continue your journey to Route 66 through Joplin and over to Oklahoma. So it's quite an adventure on Route 66, and we're seeing more and more international visitors who are enjoying that.
Checking it out before you check in on the John Guinn Travel Show on ukhealthradio.com. Interstate 44 just doesn't have the same ring to it as Route 66. So if you want to have a romantic drive through the state, keep off 44 and stay on 66. Oh, I don't mean to be lecturing you though. But Dan said that Route 66 comes into the state of Missouri at St. Louis, and I was wondering if St. Louis or St. Louis was the same place that Bugs Bunny mentioned in a cartoon an awful long time ago, back before I was even born, but I remember when I was a kid.
Yes, it is. Yeah. No Long Screwy, see you in St. Louis.
Yeah, that's the one, yeah.
Yes, that's the one. Yes, that is St. Louis.
Yes.
Right. Although the correct name is St. Louis, but yes, we refer to it informally as St. Louis.
St. Louis.
Mm-hmm.
I understand it's also, as well as Route 66 coming through, it's the home of the National Blues Museum. What's all that about?
Well, yeah, let's talk about that. I think music is a very important part of the appeal of Missouri to visitors. And we'll talk about the National Blues Museum in just one moment, but the National Blues Museum and blues actually grew up along that Mississippi River corridor, which is what travels on the east side of our state and goes all the way down to New Orleans. So Nashville, Memphis, New Orleans, and St. Louis are all part of the development of the blues that people know about and continue to be in the evenings for a place where you can hear. There's more than 20 blues clubs in St. Louis even today where you can hear the best of American blues. We'll talk about Kansas City jazz in just a moment, but at the National Blues Museum, it just opened in April. It's 23,000 square feet, and of course it does what it purports to do as a museum and traces the development of blues from Africa all the way to today. But what's something unique about this is that it's an interactive museum. Each visitor, as you come through, can develop their own blues song. So as you're going through, you can pick a bass riff, you can pick a tune, you can pick lyrics, you can pick instrumentation. And what happens, John, when you come out at the end is you have a digital song that you created that's unique to you that you can email to yourself. That's kind of a reminder of your experience at the Blues Museum. So that's kind of a modern thing and very, very interesting. In addition, over on the other side of the state in Kansas City is the American Jazz Museum. And in the same way that blues grew up along the Mississippi side, jazz made its way up from New Orleans. People say it was born in New Orleans and grew up in Kansas City, particularly in the 20s and 30s and 40s. Charlie Parker, Count Basie, and others went to Kansas City to the historic 18th and Vine area, and it was just the hottest place in the country for American jazz. And we have the American Jazz Museum on that side of the state that's even is open today. And again, more than 25 jazz clubs are open on the Kansas City side. So people who are interested in music have the St. Louis choice, have the Kansas City choice, and as I mentioned, down in Branson, all kinds of music down in that region too. So that's a big part of our appeal is our musical venues.
If somebody has a really bad taste, I don't have any inclination about music whatsoever, is there anything else to see and do in St. Louis?
In St. Louis?
Yeah.
A ton of things. A ton of things. One other thing I think is important, maybe not from our standpoint here, but from the visitor standpoint, is it probably has more free world-class attractions in St. Louis outside of the Washington area. Some of those would be the zoo, which is just a world-class zoo. It's free. The Gateway Arch, which your listeners might know, which is the largest monument in the United States. It's over 600 feet tall, and that's that beautiful big arch that signifies sort of the westward expansion of our country. It's where people moved from as they explored and pioneered into the western part of our country. And that soaring arch is absolutely astonishing to look at. In fact, when you stand there and look at it, John, it almost looks like it's computer generated. It's so hard to fathom the enormity and the grace and the beauty of this arch. It's undergone about a $400 million, and still in the process now, of